We are back with our financial literacy series with Synergy Credit Union, and I'm joined today by Amberly and Sydney this time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about credit card balances. And credit is a contentious issue no matter what. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the difference between a debit and a credit card.
Absolutely. They're very different. They both do similar things, but there are some differences. So a debit card is linked directly to your checking account. It basically is like a personal check, which I know we don't use much anymore, or cash. So basically, when you make a purchase or a transaction, that money comes out of your account right away. So you do need a checking account for it to be tied to, for the money to come from. And often with a checking account, depending on what FI you're at and the account plan you're in, there would be a monthly fee or service charge for having that, as well as charges if you become overdrawn, so taking money out that you don't actually have in your account. It doesn't affect your credit score, which is nice because it's linked right to your account. And it's a super convenient way to make daily purchases when you go to the grocery store or whatever it may be. It's a great way to have access to funds.
Okay.
And a credit card is linked to a line of credit. So think of it as a convenient way to borrow money. Transactions are covered by the credit card issuer or your financial institution, but you do have to pay them back at a later date. So it can be easy to overspend, which can lead to carrying a balance which you'll be charged interest on. When used responsibly, a credit card can help you build your credit score. It does require an application and approval process to get a credit card. And also a caution, high transaction fees can be applied when using an ATM or going over your limit.
Okay, so what are the benefits of paying your card off in full every month?
So there's actually quite a few different benefits associated with that. So the first one would be building your credit. So creating those habits and paying it off in full is a great way to get started and boost that credit score. You also skip the interest because if you're, like she mentioned, carrying a balance, you do get charged for that. So also a great way to kind of cut down on those costs. And staying out of debt is another great way since credit cards are a form of a loan. So, by paying it off, you're staying on top of that. You also can avoid late fees or penalties by, making sure those payments are done on the correct date. And then too, lots of credit cards offer rewards. So either cashback, travel, discounts at certain places such as that. So by keeping on top of those payments, you get to reap all of those rewards, which is kind of nice.
Kind of a benefit, I guess.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about being organized.
Well, to be organized with your credit card, you can do a couple of different things. You can set up the minimum payment on auto pay to avoid racking up late fees so you don't forget to make your payment. It's always going to come out automatically. You need to pay at least the minimum payment on your credit card before the due date, but it is always best if you can pay your credit card off completely in full. This will help you avoid those interest charges. And like Sydney said, reading your statement is very, very important. You could also get an app and then you can review your transactions on the daily, but lots of people don't have time for that too. But you can also set up alerts on your credit card. So anytime charge or interest fee or payment is due, you get an alert and it helps you stay organized.
Now, when the statement shows up, what type of information is on there?
So the statement is jam-packed with lots of very important information, and I feel like sometimes people maybe don't take the time to review it since it rarely comes in the mail anymore. Usually it's e-statement or online. So when reviewing your statement, there's quite a few areas to look at. So the first would be the statement date, so when it was issued, as well as the billing cycle. So basically when those transactions took place. For credit cards, typically we see 20 to 45 day periods, depending on the card. So it's not on a month-to-month basis like your bank statement would be. And then there's also the grace period too. So that would be the time that the statement ended to when your payment is due. So important to be mindful of that because often there's the minimum payment that needs to be made to avoid further penalties and then the full amount that is due for it to be paid off in full. Also, it outlines all of your transactions. So that's really important, especially these days because we're seeing really high rates of fraud and fraudulent transactions that take place. So good to keep on top of that kind of throughout the month too by using your apps or or checking in just to make sure all the transactions that are recorded are actually ones that you have made. If you find something that is fraudulent and not supposed to be on there, definitely get in contact with the credit card provider as soon as you can to get that card canceled to prevent further losses or transactions taking place. So yeah, that's a really good way to stay on top of it and make sure everything that's going through your account is accurate. Also to make sure you're not going over your limit to avoid further penalties. So yeah, lots of good information. If you have questions or are unsure of what the information means or how to read it, always recommend meeting with your financial advisor, whether it's Synergy or another FI that you deal with, to go through that just to make sure you understand and also understand the benefits of your card. If there's certain things that you should be taking more advantage of or avoiding or things like that. So definitely lots of good information that should be reviewed on a regular basis.
Yeah, that is a lot of info that's packed in there. And I think, like you said, a lot of people will just tend to quick look at it and see the balance and then that's it. But
exactly.
All kinds of different things you should be on the lookout for. So if someone has maxed out their credit card and you've got difficulties even just like making the minimum payment, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, first off, don't be embarrassed. It happens to a lot of people, and don't avoid it. That will not make it go away. So find the courage to meet with your advisor, but we can also talk about some options to think about here too. Something we would talk to you about would be making a strategy. So we go at it with a snowball strategy or an avalanche strategy, just to kind of give you a mental picture. So your snowball strategy is starting smaller and hopefully building up. So we want to pick out the debt that has the least amount or the highest interest. Pay that first. If that doesn't work and you have a lot of money and you're feeling really ambitious, you want to start attacking the biggest balances and paying them off first and then going from there. That's your avalanche strategy. So that's going to get rid of it quicker. But both strategies work, and definitely get in touch with your advisor and we can work through it. Sometimes it takes the emotion out of it for people, and then we can look at the facts and make a clear plan.
Well, excellent information on all of this. And if anybody is looking for help with their credit or with anything else, what's the best way to reach you at any of the branches?
So I would go to our website, so synergycu.ca. From there, we have lots of helpful tips and tricks, lots of blog articles and learning resources, but also you have the ability to book appointments with one of our advisors, either on the phone, in person, via Teams, and whatever branch is closest to you. And we'd always look forward to the opportunity to chat with members and non-members about these topics. And yeah, that would probably be the best way to reach us.
Okay, well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.